All right, g'day guys, welcome back to True Eagle. I did say yesterday I wasn't going to do a video between day one and day two. In the end, I decided to not do a day two mock. It's one of those drafts where it's just, I don't know how useful it would be, especially when you consider how many I got wrong in my other mock. So instead, I'm going to do a reaction to day one from a West Coast perspective on this channel. And we end up with Bo Allan after a little bit of activity. We started the day thinking it was going to be Taj Houghton. I said that in yesterday's video, and then further that, Toomey then changed his mind and said we were going to get Houghton, and he ended up going at pick 12, which really opened things up, and we end up with Bo Allan at what became pick 16. For anyone who missed it, we had pick 15. We were on the clock. Port Adelaide trade up one spot. This is the third time I think we've done a live trade with Port Adelaide at the draft. And they move up to secure Joe Berry, and they give us pick 45, which I believe has now become 44. And that will be a pick that we use tomorrow. So first of all, on the trade itself, it was confusing at the time because, I think West Coast at that time, I obviously didn't expect Bo Allan to ever be available, and he was. And so it would have been very logical to assume that West Coast would have just taken Bo Allan, and Port Adelaide, who had the very next pick, didn't need to trade up to get Joe Berry. I would have thought that was a safe assumption. I would have been very surprised if West Coast had picked Joe Berry. However, I think Fremantle had also offered a trade with us, and so Port Adelaide just needed to make sure that they didn't lose out on Joe Berry by Fremantle trading up. I would have also thought that Fremantle might have taken Bo Allan, but maybe that's the only logical explanation I can think, is that Fremantle would have presumably taken Joe Berry as well. So long story short, we end up with Bo Allan and we bank a pick 45 or 44 as it currently stands. So two pretty good outcomes, I would say. Now, I've seen a little bit of discussion online and the general reaction from West Coast fans, and there's two divergent thoughts. On the one hand, people are stoked with the romantic idea. We've landed the best West Australian talent, potentially a midfield gun, and very happy about that, and that's good. And then on the other hand, you've got some West Coast fans who are a little bit flat about the fact that Bo Allan has some limitations, and there's some doubt about him becoming a genuine midfielder at the next level, and perhaps a little bit of clinging on to the idea that we could have had either Jagger Smith or Sid Draper after the fact. So we would never have gotten Finn O'Sullivan. We know that now, had we held pick 3. It ended up being Jagger Smith. It's conceivable we would have gone Sid Draper or maybe Harvey Langford. I'd probably say one of the former two there. So perhaps, some are still clinging to that idea. And I suppose you could look at this trade period or this draft period holistically. There's two different ways of looking at it. You can look at the whole outcome of what would essentially be, let's call it Jagger Smith, for Bo Allan, Liam Baker, Matt Owies, and whoever we draft at 44. So one player for the price of 4. 4 does not always exceed 1. Time will tell exactly how that is going to end up. But the other way to look at it is through the lens of today. And what were the possible outcomes from today? And that is where I probably see myself as in between those two camps. And I think I have a level of satisfaction with the way today went. Now, I feel a little bit silly. I got egg on my face. This whole time talking about how Bo Allan was not going to be available to us. In my defense, that wasn't just completely unfounded. That was pretty much what the consensus was. There wasn't much hope he was going to get through to West Coast, and I never really let myself emotionally commit to the idea. I've been talking about alternatives. What do we do with Travalia, Allan, and Xavier Lindsay are all gone. And I did say Xavier Lindsay was my preference, and I stand by that. However, he was never going to be available as it stands. So I started to commit to guys like Joe Berry and Ollie Hannaford, of course. I talked about him and, do we trade down? In the end, we get one of the three that, it seemed just out of our reach. It ended up being Bo Allan. And I think from that perspective, considering we traded down, banked at 45 as well, I can't argue with that. I've got a genuine level of satisfaction with how today in isolation went. So that's all good. As for Bo Allan as a player, look, I've done a whole profile on him on the True Footy YouTube channel. If you click up in the top right corner, I'll show you the link to that. I've also done Malachi Champion on this channel today. So that'll be like the second most recent video on this channel if you want to go find it. I'll just leave a link in the top right corner too. So there is the caveat that, Bo Allan doesn't fix our needs. And stylistically, he's kind of more of what we have already, more so than filling a gap in what we don't have. I'm not going to lie, I'm probably still in the camp of not really thinking Bo Allan is likely to be a full-time midfielder throughout the progression of his career. I think, maybe we'll use Jinby as a template. No two players are the same, and we don't want to, harp on too much and assume they're the same player, but they are similar in terms of being really athletic and tall intercepting defenders primarily, with a bit of midfield potential. Now, just because Jinbi didn't, succeed initially as a midfielder, who knows about the future? His stoppage craft, he didn't quite get it to click in his first 2 seasons. Does not mean Bo's going to be the same sort of player, but in my opinion, I still think he's probably more a defender. Now, this isn't really a specific need. We're talking about a tall, athletic, powerful, potential inside midfielder who plays back that ultimately, isn't the best kick by foot. Well, yeah, what else would you use to kick? His disposal by foot is inconsistent and he doesn't win a lot of the footy, which is probably, one of the glaring weaknesses we have as midfielders who can get from contest to contest and help link up and win the footy. We've got a lot of low possession impact midfielders. And we also have another player like Jinbi in the back line. But having said all that, like I said, you look at through the context of today and what was a likely outcome, and I'm pretty relieved that we got Bo Allan. And even though Joe Berry may have suited us better in some ways, I think there's a very safe bet, in my opinion, that Bo Allan's going to be a good footballer. And now I don't think he has the upside of a Harley Reid or an Elijah Hewitt for that matter. But I do think it's a pretty safe bet that he becomes a quality part of a backline at the very least. And to be honest, we probably needed quality back half players more than we needed another forward. As much as I, campaigned for Hannaford, I said at the time on the stream that I think Bo Allan is the smart move here rather than someone who I'd, loved in the lead up to this draft in Ollie Hannaford. I think Bo Allan made sense. I do think that he is both physically ready and also, given our list needs and our depth position, I think he plays round 1, to be honest. I think we'll go into round 1 next year with potentially Jinbi and Bo Allan starting in our backline. Does that mean we've rectified our midfield? No, that's still an issue. But we kind of knew going into this draft that we were unlikely to be able to tick that box straight away. And that's just assuming the worst case scenario. And that's that Bo Allan is not a midfielder, which I'm not in a position to rule out at this point. I'm just saying safe bet. Probably a defender, but I think a very good one. And, the brand of what this team's going to be, it's going to be fast, it's going to be contested, it's going to be powerful. Like, look at the amounts of players we've drafted. Great athletes, that's the way the game's going. And I do think we need to add some polish on the outside. While Bo has, some speed and he could potentially play on a wing, probably not the most polished footballer. So hence my interest in someone like a Xavier Lindsay. But, you can add those a little bit later on. And while, I think next year will still be a rough year for us, past that, look what Andrew Gaff did. If you're old enough to remember Gaff's first season, we were crying out for outside speed and polish. And as an 18-year-old, he was able to come in and impact. So by that logic, you build inside out and maybe you draft the classy ball winners, later. I don't know. I guess I'm just resigned to the idea that we were never going to, perfect our list in this draft. If you just look at what could have possibly happened today, this is a lot better than, how it could have potentially gone. And the other big benefit here that shouldn't be underrated, in my opinion, is the fact that we banked another pick in the 40s. Now, it's just a pick in the 40s, but I think, I've been saying I was hoping to trade back into the 30s or 40s. And if you look at the North Melbourne trade that happened at the end of the life of day 1, if you use that as a little bit of a template, they massively overpaid just to simply get pick 27 in this year's draft. They potentially gave up a top 5 pick. It could be pick 2 or 3 at this current point in time. And to be honest, I think that does have the potential to be more one-sided than the 3 for 12, 14 and O's. But parking that, the point being is that it was very hard to trade into this year's draft. So what would it have cost us without doing this deal for Port Adelaide to get another pick in the 40s or even the 50s? It might have cost us a future second. And frankly, we have all our picks intact next year, and I'm glad that is the case. I think at this point, we're not going to trade any future first to get into it. Could we trade another future second to get another bite of the apple? Potentially. But, for literally nothing, we would have taken Bo Allan anyway, in my opinion. Otherwise, we wouldn't have done the deal. We've netted that 3rd rounder. So we go into day 2 in a pretty good position, I would say. We held pick 3 on the day. Job Shanahan is still on the board. Now, we discussed the merits of him, or at least I did, at our first selection, and I thought it would have been weird, even though I liked the kid. And now that we're potentially talking about him at pick 30, the interest has definitely dialed up on my end. So, look, is he a key forward? Is he a key back? It sounds like he's probably more of a key forward, and that creates all these different logistical nightmares going forward. Like, we've just got, Ryan Marrick, who I think is training with the backs at the moment, Jack Williams, Archer Reed, Jake Waterman, Oscar Allen. There's a bit of a logjam there, but at some point, the price is right when the talent is right. And if the Eagles back him in, I think we could have a bargain there. I don't want to get excited, but there's 2 picks ahead of us tomorrow. Richmond and the Western Bulldogs, both of whom probably surely wouldn't take another key position forward. The Bulldogs have Sam Darcy, Aaron Norton, Jamari Uhagan, Jordan Croft, who was drafted last year in the first round, and Richmond just added 2 first rounds key forwards in Harry Armstrong and Jonty Fall. So unless those picks get traded, and that is conceivable, that is a threat to us here. But if we just hold our position, we could end up with Jobe Shanahan. Again, does it plug gaps in our list? Probably not. But we might get 2 pretty damn good footballers. And at this point in time, don't know if we should be saying no to that. Especially just looking around at the other candidates for this pick. And I think Jobe Shanahan's talent level far exceeds what else might be out there. If we simply reached for a wingman or an outside mid at this 30 pick, well, I'll defer to West Coast judgment. They might think there is somebody out there. But, from my knowledge and my understanding, I think Shanahan's the guy. So I'm hoping that is the way the cards fall tomorrow. We'll take our 44. This is probably where I'd say we take a tall back. Names like Charlie Nichols, Tom Bell, Clancy Dennis, those guys will all come into the mix, potentially Noah Mraz. So there's options there. We can relax a little bit about a key back, and we might just pick the most talented guy who's available. And hopefully Shanahan is available because, I think he's a good prospect, and I cannot believe he's still there. So I suppose in time we'll do a whole, analysis of this trade and draft period. But, if I were to try and make a positive spin on everything that's happened so far, look, I'm still iffy about the trade down we did, but looking at the marketplace, maybe that really was the best offer we were going to ever get. But anyway, pick 14 for Liam Baker in this economy does seem a little bit odd. Parking that though, you just think we've added 4 players through this trade of pick 3. And, a lot hinges on how good they're going to be and, how long they're going to play for us as well. But 3 of those players, I reckon, start round 1. I'm talking Liam Baker, Matt Owies, and Bo Allan. Plus 45, maybe we get to plug a hole. And if we nail that pick 45, then suddenly we might actually turn this whole thing around. A lot of variables there. I'm not trying to justify the trade too much, just trying to make us feel a little bit better about the position we're in. And we could have, 3 best 22 players from round 1 of next year in Bo Allan, Liam Baker, Matt Owies. And I just think back. I know you think about list building principles and you want to prioritize top end talent, but I also just think back to how many awful games we played last year. We're just like, what the hell are you doing? Where are all our players? Why is the camera showing 6 Carlton players running into an open goal? There's going to be some benefits to improving that 22, and I think those 3 players at least start. What happens next is a trickier thing to assess. So long story short, very comfortable adding Bo. Anything we can do in the pursuit of converting Docker fans to West Coast fans, with just 1 at a time, is a great result. Well, Bo is a Fremantle fan, presumably his family were, so maybe we just added 12 West Coast fans to join them to the light side. So there's a positive in that. I think he'll be a good footballer, whichever third of the ground he plays in. As far as today's gone, this is as good as we could have possibly hoped. I think given the circumstances, trading in again earlier would have been extremely expensive, and we're in a good position next year, whether we go for Chad Warner or what. Makes me feel a little bit better as well. If we get, Bo Allan becomes a gun defender and then we trade in another midfielder, suddenly that's not looking so dire. There's a little bit of copium in this for sure. But I still maintain I'm comfortable with the way this has played out. I think he was the best player available. I didn't expect him to be available. Cal Toomey thought he'd go pick 11. We got lucky, in my opinion. There's no one after that I wish I'd taken instead. I would have also been a little bit happy if it was Hannaford, but realistically, taking off my little love affair for Ollie Hannaford as a footballer, Bo Allan was the right choice, and we've made a good start, and hopefully we have some more luck tomorrow. Hopefully we get Shanahan, a key back. Maybe we take another late pick on the best available prospect that's out there. Maybe we go mature age, we get Malachi as a NGA. So far, so good. So far, so good is the conclusion. But as always, I look forward to your input. Were you happy to see us select Bo Allan? Interested to hear your thoughts. I will be live on the True Footy YouTube channel tomorrow, and then I will ideally do a West Coast reaction pretty soon after that. But for now, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Up the Eagles.